just sitting at my desk and had an interesting inquiry about why is it that people say go to Australia in order to cut properly. The reason for that is they cut primarily hardwood when you go to compete in Australia. And cutting hardwood requires more discipline and more focus on controlling the axe than cutting the softwood that we cut here in North America. There's a lot of carryover from cutting hardwood, training on hardwood, and progressing to where you can cut softwood with better slope and better control when allowing the axe to follow through. I have a personal belief that if a person trains on primarily hardwood, which requires thicker axes, which requires thicker edges, that you will learn to control a axe much more better in a softwood log. The reality of that situation is that plus you'll end up repairing your training axes quite frequently because of the imperfections that pop up in our oaks and in our maples and in our beeches and in our hickories and in our ashes. Ash is, because it's dying, is one of the most abundant training woods that I have access to right now, and it doesn't cut like any of the wood that they cut in Australia, in my opinion. It's a good deal firmer, but because it's clean, because it is ash. You can only cut like a 10-inch ash log if you race it. The only difference that a little caveat I will add, that the only difference perhaps is that race training. In order to become better at racing, you need to race more, and that's one of the reasons why they're much better in Australia and New Zealand than they are in America. And the reason for that is that you go to a typical wood chop, a county chop in Australia, you'll cut a 10, an 11, a 12-inch standing block, probably a foot, maybe a 13-inch underhand, then they'll have a championship. So right there, if you make the finals in all of those events, you're cutting 8 or 10 blocks in a day. Whereas here in America, we cut an underhand, a standing block, and maybe a springboard. So there's more chopping involved. And the abundance of, a lot of people don't have to train that much in Australia, whereas here we have to train a good deal more volume-wise, because we don't get the actual race training that they do in those events. So my personal belief is that a person can train in a way that's fundamental to developing the control of the axe, the efficiency of the axe, as well as the placement of the axe on the log. However, we may not get the race training necessary to be as proficient at it as our counterparts in those areas of the world. We can substitute it, but there's no substitute for real competition, in my opinion. You gotta check your ego at the door and find out what it's all about.